So this is a type of video that I don't really do anymore on this channel due to lack of interest, but every once in a while I come across a video that I really want to talk about in video form, and I guess you can say it brings out the 2016 me, if you want to put it that way. And in this instance, the video in question is from a YouTuber I enjoy called TheArchfiend. He uploaded a video a few days ago that I take a little bit of contention with, called "Removing Parler from the Internet is Censorship, and this trend is not good for democracy." Basically, in the video, Archfiend lays out his concerns for a whole entire platform being essentially erased from the internet. You can't access it on the App Store, the Google Play Store, Amazon Web Services ceased hosting the site. Basically, the site is dead, unless it finds another hosting service, which who knows if that will happen, but I really have no issue with this. Why should I feel sorry for a social media platform that was such a breeding ground for rampant bigotry, hatred in general, and also the spread of harmful misinformation like, say, the presidency was stolen from Donald Trump, Joe Biden is not the legitimate president, and that can lead to events like what we saw on the 6th, insurrection, an attempt to thwart democracy. Parler was a platform that allowed extreme right-wingers to spew their bullshit rhetoric without any pushback whatsoever. Every time a lefty tried to join Parler, they were banned instantaneously. They did not want that shit on their platform whatso-fucking-ever. So basically, Parler was an echo chamber where, again, right-wingers can congregate in mass and talk about their detached from reality conspiracy theories about Donald Trump being supposedly robbed of the presidency. And since there was no actual pushback whatsoever, no disagreements whatsoever, they just continued to talk about things like this and continued to be more firm in their beliefs and more militant about their beliefs, leading them to do something like storming the Capitol on January 6th. This is why I shed no tears over Parler's ban, because when you have a platform completely dedicated to these kind of people, congregating in mass, speaking to one another, seeping further and further away from reality because they were all banned off of regular social media because they were hateful assholes and broke hate speech policy, and they are never told on these platforms that they are wrong, they are never challenged for their beliefs, so again, they feel more certain about their beliefs, they're more militant about their beliefs. This is the kind of results that it can lead to. Look at the Christchurch shooter. Shot up a mosque in New Zealand, killed 51 people. How was he radicalized? Right-wing social media sites like 4chan. The mere existence of these kind of platforms, these quote-unquote free speech alternative websites, where radical right-wing ideology, white supremacy, white nationalism goes basically unchecked because the moderators also ascribe to radical right-wing ideology, can lead to harmful real-world results. And I am almost certain that a lot of the people who went to storm the Capitol on the 6th were radicalized through social media, radicalized through platforms like Parler. They perhaps started out as moderates or right-leaning centrists or hell, even liberals, and then they took a stroll on Parler, started seeing a lot of the propaganda put on there, and they fell for it hook, line, and sinker, and they became the crazy Trumpers like what we saw at the Capitol. It's much easier to radicalize people on the internet than you think, Arch, and not to pull an okay boomer, but perhaps you, being on the older side, you don't fully understand how the internet can influence one's perspective on the world and influence one's views on social issues. And it happened to me. While I was never an extreme right-winger, at worst I was probably a left-leaning centrist, but the normalization of slurs online, the normalization of jokes geared towards the marginalized that are not meant to laugh with them, but instead laugh at them, really skewed my perspective on many social issues. It made me very insensitive towards non-white issues, LGBTQ plus issues, feminism. I used to say things like, why are these LGBT people in the streets celebrating their sexuality, celebrating who they are? They already have their rights, so they have no reason to celebrate, and say other very ignorant things like that, and also, of course, make jokes to non-white people I knew in real life and basically lose them as friends. You know, I used to do horrible things like that because the internet made it so internally normalized for me. I used to say slurs out the ass. I used to say the N-word all the time under the guise of, it's just a joke, bro. If you get offended, well, that's on you. Stop being such a sensitive little bitch. And still to this day, I'm trying to recover and redeem myself from my horrible fucking actions of the past. It's not being weak-minded, it's just falling hook, line, and sinker for the disgusting bigotry that many people online try to repackage as just edgy humor in an attempt to keep the marginalized in this world. Luckily for for me, I snapped out of it, but for many people, it can't be talked away, it can't be debated away, none of that, because they were told so many times by people on social media that they are correct, they are right, and that one person in real life who tells them they are wrong, well, in that person's mind, that person is wrong. They're the ones that are detached from reality. It doesn't matter how detached from reality their beliefs may be, they are still going to believe that they are right, and they are likely never going to change their positions, because they were radicalized through social media, radicalized by people on social media, and any attempt to combat this, I welcome. And you might say, and I saw this in your comment section, well, Twitter also has this, Facebook also has this, YouTube also has this, there are many hateful people on there, and they are still on those social media platforms, so why don't we do anything about Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc.? Well, at the very least, they are doing something about it. They banned all the QAnon people, they banned Trump, they banned a lot of the hardcore Trumpers. Yeah, sure, some still fester, but at least they made some kind of attempt to crack down on these kind of people. It may be too little too late. It may have come years too late. Say whatever you will, but at least an attempt is being made. And also, unlike Parler, these websites were not created with the intention to curate these kind of people, have a space completely dedicated to these kind of people, where they can talk and congregate and be further and further radicalized into right-wing ideology, extreme right-wing ideology, I should say. And at the end of the day, the web hosting services that don't want anything to do with Parler are well within their rights to not want anything to do with Parler, because they are private businesses themselves, much like Apple and Google, who don't want to host them on their app stores. They don't have to host Parler. They're well within their rights to not host Parler, and that's exactly what they're doing, because they don't want anything to do with an app that has to do with an attempt at an insurrection, an attempt to thwart democracy. You acknowledged at the beginning of your video that social media websites are well within their rights to ban whoever they want for whatever reason they want, so apply the same logic to web hosting services. The websites that are hosted by said web hosting services have to bend to the whim of said web hosting services, and if a website has to do with an insurrection, then the web hosting service is well within the rights not to host that website, and that website shouldn't have been a safe haven for crazy right-wingers to plan out an insurrection. And no, this isn't a complete defense of platforms like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, etc., because those websites can also be pipelines to the alt-right and extreme right-wing ideology. I think something should certainly be done about that, sure, and they should be held more accountable for that, but they don't deserve to be wiped out completely like Parler. But yeah, anyways, that's really all I have to say about Archfiend's video. You're still cool, Archfiend, if you're by any chance watching this. I still watch your videos, or at least the non-sports ones. I kind of sort of tune out of the sports ones. Unless you're screaming in them, then that's a different story. But yeah, I still like your content, but honestly, the video you made about Parler was a miss. I also implore you, and really anyone watching this, to watch a video by a YouTuber called Non-Compete called The PewDiePipeline: How Edgy Humor Leads to Violence. While I know Archfiend's video wasn't really about edgy humor, it still lays out beautifully how social media can influence a person and radicalize an individual, and lays it out way better than I ever could, so certainly it is a great watch, and will give you plenty of insight on, again, how social media can radicalize an individual. I'll probably link it along with Archfiend's original video in the description, and if I forget, you can scream at me about it in the comments, but anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.